For 3 years, a billionaire's daughter named Diana Norris lived under a death sentence. Her father, Mr. Jeff Norris, owned almost half the city, but he couldn't buy her a single extra day. The best doctors in the world examined her. Specialists from Boston, London, Geneva. Hundreds of millions of dollars spent. Zero hope. Then came one afternoon. A poor gifted black girl named Sarah with no medical degree knelt on the lawn, looked into Diana's eyes, and saw what every expert missed. In less than 2 minutes, she did something that stopped the clock. What the girl saw in Diana was what got everything even darker. Because it wasn't just a disease. Someone had been killing her on purpose. Before we continue, subscribe to this channel right now and comment below where you're watching from. Whether you're in Australia, Canada, the United States, Africa, the UK, or anywhere across Europe, I want to see how far this story of unexpected twist can reach. Because what happens next will make you question who you trust around your own friends and even family. Now let me take you back to where it all started. The conference room was cold. The head specialist's voice was clinical, detached. Mr. Norris, we've exhausted every avenue. 3 weeks. Maybe 4. Jeff Norris had built an empire. He controlled markets, negotiated billion-dollar deals without blinking. But right now, his hands shook so badly he had to grip the armrests to hide it. I'd like to be alone. He'd failed. All the money in the world, and he couldn't save the only person who mattered. 1 week later, Jeff made a decision. If Diana only had days left where she could still be herself, he wasn't going to let her spend them in a hospital bed. He had the staff prepare her favorite dress, deep red, like she'd always wanted to wear to a real ball. Diana looked at herself in the mirror and smiled. Weak, but real. I look like a princess. Jeff's throat closed. He nodded, not trusting his voice. Outside, the late afternoon sun painted the lawn gold. Diana sank onto the grass, exhausted. Her red dress pooled around her like spilled wine. Jeff knelt beside her, his $1,000 suit pressing into the damp earth. I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry I couldn't fix this. Diana opened her eyes with a clarity that broke his heart. It's okay, Daddy. You tried. But it wasn't okay. It would never be okay. Jeff stood, pulling out his phone, desperate for anything, and that's when he saw her. A child. Maybe 10 years old. Black, thin, wearing a faded dress washed colorless. Standing at the property line, staring. Not at the mansion. Not at Jeff. At Diana. She walked forward deliberately, crossing onto private property. Past the no trespassing signs. Straight toward Diana. Hey, you can't, Jeff dashed forward. Jeff stood in Diana's doorway watching her sleep. Or pretend to sleep. He could never tell anymore. Dr. Chun had left an hour ago. Another expert. Another set of test results that said the same thing in different words. The cancer was winning. The experimental treatments weren't working. They had days, not weeks. He'd stopped asking how many days. The number changed every time, and it was never enough. Jeff walked to the window and looked out at the grounds. 20 acres of perfect green stretching toward the iron gates. Beyond them, the city he'd conquered. The skyline dotted with buildings that bore his name. His empire, built over 30 years of ruthless decisions and calculated risks. None of it mattered. Dad. He turned. Diana was awake, watching him with those 2 old eyes. Hey, sweetheart. I didn't mean to wake you. You didn't. She pushed herself up slowly, wincing. I was just resting my eyes. The lie hung between them. They'd gotten good at those lately. Jeff crossed to her bed and sat on the edge carefully, like she might break. I was thinking. Maybe we could go outside today. Just for a little while. Diana's eyes widened slightly. She hadn't been outside in 2 weeks. The doctors had advised against it. Too much risk of infection. Too much strain on her weakening body. Really? Really? Jeff smiled, and this time it almost reached his eyes. I don't care what the doctors say anymore. If you want to feel the sun, you're going to feel the sun. Tears welled in Diana's eyes. I'd like that. They dressed her slowly. The nurses helped, their movements gentle and reverent, like they were preparing something sacred. Diana insisted on the red dress. The one she'd been saving. For what, she'd never said, but Jeff understood now. She'd been saving it for this. For the last time. The dress hung loose on her frame, but she looked beautiful. Fragile and pale, but beautiful. The walk through the mansion took 15 minutes. Diana leaned heavily on Jeff's arm, stopping twice to catch her breath. Staff members they passed quickly looked away, some wiping their eyes. Outside, the afternoon sun was warm and golden. The kind of perfect day that felt cruel in its beauty. Diana breathed in deeply, then coughed. Jeff held her steady until it passed. Where do you want to go? Diana looked around, taking in the gardens, the pool, the tennis courts. Then she pointed toward the front lawn, near the gates. There. I want to see past the walls. Jeff's throat tightened. Of course she did. She'd spent the last year locked inside this fortress. Even dying, she wanted to see the world beyond it. They walked slowly across the grass. Jeff could feel Diana getting weaker with each step, her weight shifting more and more onto his arm. By the time they reached the spot she'd chosen, she was trembling. I need to sit. Of course. Jeff helped her down gently onto the grass. Her red dress spread around her like spilled wine, like blood, like everything he was losing. Diana tilted her face toward the sun, eyes closed. A small smile crossed her lips. This is nice. Jeff knelt beside her, his expensive suit pressing into the damp earth. Security stood at a discreet distance, giving them space. The nurses waited by the house, ready if needed. Everything was controlled. Everything was monitored. Everything was perfect. Except his daughter was dying, and there wasn't a damn thing he could do about it. I'm sorry, baby, Jeff whispered, his voice breaking. I'm so sorry I couldn't fix this. Diana opened her eyes and looked at him with heartbreaking clarity. It's okay, Daddy. You tried. But it wasn't okay. It would never be okay. Jeff stood, needing to move, needing to do something. He pulled out his phone, checking for messages from the hospital, from the research facility in Germany, from anyone who might have a miracle hiding in their lab. Nothing. He turned away, his vision blurring. That's when he saw her. A girl standing at the property line. Thin, black, wearing a faded dress. Staring not at the mansion or the grounds. Staring directly at Diana. And the look on her face made Jeff's blood run cold. Because she looked like she could see exactly what was killing his daughter. Sarah's feet moved before her mind could stop them. The knowing had been building all day. Through math class where she couldn't focus. Through lunch where food tasted like ash. Through the walk home where every step felt like moving through water. And then she'd seen them. The man in the expensive suit helping a girl in a red dress onto the lawn. The girl so pale she looked like a ghost. The way she collapsed onto the grass like her bones couldn't hold her up anymore. The pain hit Sarah like a physical blow. Not just sickness. Not just death approaching. Something darker. Something deliberate. Something that felt like poison wrapped in love. Sarah's vision tunneled. Her breath came short. The knowing wasn't whispering anymore. It was screaming. She crossed the street. Her worn shoes hit the pavement in rhythm with her racing heart. The iron gates loomed ahead, massive and forbidding. Security cameras tracked her movement. A guard started toward her from his post. Sarah didn't care. She reached the property line and didn't stop. 1 foot on public sidewalk. 1 foot on private property worth millions. Then both feet moving forward. crossing a line that girls like her never crossed. "Hey." The guard's voice was sharp. "You can't be here." Sarah ignored him. Her eyes locked on the girl in red. Diana. She didn't know how she knew the name, but she knew it like she knew her own. The man in the suit turned. His face went from grief to shock to anger in seconds. He started toward her, phone already in his hand, probably calling for more security. But then his phone rang. He stopped, torn between the intruder and the call. Sarah saw the name on the screen even from a distance. Dr. Chun. He hesitated, looked at Diana, looked at Sarah, then stepped away, pressing the phone to his ear. His voice urgent. Desperate. Sarah kept walking. The guard was closer now. I said stop. But Sarah was already there. Already kneeling on the grass in front of the girl whose pain had been calling to her for weeks. Diana stared at her, eyes wide. Confused. Too weak to be afraid. Up close, Sarah could see everything. The way Diana's skin was almost translucent. The shadows under her eyes. The way her hands trembled even at rest. But more than that, Sarah could feel what the doctors couldn't see. The weight pressing down on Diana's chest wasn't just disease. It was grief. Resentment. Hatred. Emotions so heavy they were crushing her from the inside. And they didn't belong to Diana. "You're hurting," Sarah whispered. "But not the way they think." Diana's breath caught. "What?" "I can see it." Sarah's voice was barely audible. "It's not just in your body. It's in your heart. Someone put it there." Diana's eyes filled with tears. Not sad tears. Recognition tears. The guard's hand landed on Sarah's shoulder, gripped tight. "You need to leave right." "Wait." Diana's voice was weak but clear. She held up one trembling hand. "Please. Let her stay." The guard hesitated, confused. Sarah reached out slowly, her hand hovering near Diana's pale cheek. "May I?" Diana nodded, a single tear sliding down her face. Sarah's fingers touched skin, and the connection hit like lightning. She felt it all. The terminal diagnosis. Jeff's desperate love. The medications that couldn't help. The specialists who'd given up. But beneath all that, darker and deeper, she felt the truth. Someone in Diana's life had been feeding her emotional poison. Day after day. Week after week. Their resentment, their jealousy, their hatred seeping into Diana like acid. Not enough to show up on medical tests. But enough to break her will to fight. Enough to accelerate what the disease had started. "You're not supposed to die," Sarah whispered, her voice fierce. "Not like this. They're making you give up." Diana sobbed. "I feel so heavy. All the time. Like I'm drowning." "I know." Sarah pressed her palm flat against Diana's cheek. "But you can fight it. You can push it out." Behind them, Jeff's voice rose in frustration on the phone. Security radios crackled. The world prepared to pull them apart. But in that moment, Sarah poured everything she had into Diana. Every ounce of pure intention. Every bit of genuine care she'd ever felt for a stranger suffering. And something shifted. Sarah felt it like a dam breaking. The dark weight that had been crushing Diana suddenly cracked. Light flooded in where shadow had lived. Diana gasped. Color rushed into her face. Her eyes cleared. And for the first time in months, she took a full breath without pain. The change was impossible. Diana's skin flushed pink. Not the fever flush the nurses monitored constantly. Real color. Health flooding back into her face like someone had flipped a switch inside her body. Her breathing deepened. Steadied. The shallow gasps that had marked every moment for weeks suddenly gone, replaced by full, clear breaths that filled her lungs completely. Sarah pulled her hand back, stunned. She'd felt the shift, but seeing it was different. Diana's eyes were bright, alert. The fog of medication and approaching death had lifted like morning mist burned away by sun. "I can," Diana's voice cracked. She touched her own chest, wonder spreading across her face. "I can breathe. I can actually breathe." She pushed herself up. Not the slow, agonizing movement Jeff had helped her with. She sat up straight, her back strong, her arms steady. The trembling was gone. The guard stumbled backward, his radio falling from his hand. "What the?" Diana stood. Actually stood. On her own. Without help. Without pausing. Without the world graying at the edges. She swayed for a moment, then steadied. Her legs held. Her body obeyed. She took a step forward, then another, testing limbs that had betrayed her for so long. "Oh my God," she whispered. She looked at Sarah with tears streaming down her face. "What did you do? What did you just do to me?" Sarah opened her mouth, but no words came. She didn't know what she'd done. She only knew what she'd felt. The darkness breaking. The weight lifting. The poison draining away. "Diana." Jeff's voice cut through the moment like a blade. He stood 20 feet away, phone forgotten in his hand, staring at his daughter. Standing. Moving. Alive in a way she hadn't been in months. His face went white. Then red. Then something Sarah had never seen before, a mix of hope and terror so intense it looked like pain. He ran. Not a walk. Not a careful approach. A full sprint across the lawn, his expensive shoes tearing up grass, his suit jacket flying open. He reached Diana and grabbed her shoulders, his hands shaking so badly they could barely hold on. "You're standing. How are you standing?" Diana laughed. A real laugh. Clear and bright and utterly impossible. "Dad, I don't know. She touched me and..." Jeff's head snapped toward Sarah. The hope in his face evaporated. Fury replaced it. Raw, desperate fury born from 3 years of watching his daughter die and suddenly seeing her alive and not understanding why. "Who the hell are you?" His voice was low. Dangerous. "What did you do to my daughter?" Sarah stood slowly, her legs unsteady. "I didn't hurt her. I would never. You broke onto my property. You touched my dying daughter without permission." Jeff's voice broke on the word dying. He turned back to Diana, scanning her face, her body, looking for the trap. The trick. The cruel joke the universe was playing. "This isn't possible," the doctors said. "I know what they said." Diana gripped her father's arms. "But look at me. Dad, really look at me." Jeff did. His eyes swept over her. The color in her cheeks. The strength in her stance. The clarity in her eyes. All the signs of approaching death reversed in minutes. "This doesn't make sense," he whispered. "No," Sarah said quietly. "It doesn't. But it's real." Jeff released Diana and rounded on Sarah. In 2 steps he was in front of her, towering over her, every inch the billionaire who'd crushed competitors and built an empire through force of will. "Explain. Now. What did you do?" Sarah met his eyes. She should have been terrified. A man this powerful, this desperate, this close to losing everything. But she wasn't. Because she knew the truth. "I didn't cure her," Sarah said, her voice steady. "I broke what was killing her." Jeff's face went still. "What are you talking about?" "Someone's been hurting her. Not with medicine. With something else. Something the doctors can't see." Sarah's jaw set. Someone she trusts. The fury drained from Jeff's face. Something colder took its place. Behind him, Diana's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh God," she breathed. "Oh God, I felt it. When she touched me, I felt it leave. The weight. It wasn't just the disease. Jeff turned slowly to his daughter. What wait? Diana's eyes filled with fresh tears. Someone's been poisoning me, Daddy. Not my body. My soul. The lawn went silent. Security stood frozen. The nurses by the house had stopped moving. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Jeff looked at Sarah. At Diana. At the impossible reversal that shouldn't exist but did. Who? His voice was barely a whisper. Sarah closed her eyes. The knowing was still there. Clearer now. Sharper. Someone in your house. Someone close. But before we find out who betrayed the Norris family, if you're not subscribed yet, hit that button now. Stories like this, where money means nothing and truth costs everything. These are the stories that matter. Subscribe so you never miss what happens next. Now back to the betrayal that's about to tear everything apart. The medical team arrived within minutes. Jeff had demanded every test, every scan, every measurement they had. He needed proof. Numbers. Data. Something that made sense. Dr. Chen stood in Diana's room 3 hours later, staring at the results like they'd been written in a foreign language. Her vitals are stable. Strong, even. Blood pressure normal. Oxygen levels excellent. She looked up at Jeff. Confusion etched across her face. But the disease is still there. The cancer cells haven't disappeared. They're just dormant. Like something stopped them from progressing. How is that possible? Jeff asked. Dr. Chun shook her head slowly. It's not. Medically, this shouldn't be happening. It's like her body suddenly remembered how to fight back. Jeff dismissed her and called his head of security. Marcus Hayes had worked for the Norris family for 15 years. Ex-FBI. Thorough. Ruthless when needed. I need you to investigate everyone in this house. Staff, family, everyone who's had contact with Diana in the last year. Hayes didn't question it. He began that night. 2 days later, he returned with a file that made Jeff's blood freeze. We found anomalies in Diana's routine. Someone's been manipulating her environment. Small things. Consistent things. Hayes opened the file. Her medication schedule was altered multiple times, not enough to kill her, but enough to increase her anxiety and pain levels. Her therapy sessions were sabotaged. Private conversations were recorded and played back to her when she was alone, making her relive her worst moments. Jeff's hands clenched. Who? Hayes met his eyes. All the security logs point to one person. Someone with unrestricted access to Diana's wing. Someone she trusted completely. He slid a photograph across the desk. Jeff stared at the face. His stomach dropped. His world shattered. Because he knew that face. Had trusted that face. Had brought that person into his home and his daughter's life. No, he whispered. But the evidence didn't lie. The rot had been inside his house all along. Jeff stared at the photograph. His sister's daughter. Rebecca. Diana's favorite cousin. The girl who'd read to Diana when she was too weak to hold a book. Who'd brought flowers every week. Who'd cried at every bad diagnosis. There has to be a mistake, Jeff said, his voice hollow. Hayes pulled out more evidence. Audio files. Security footage. Bank records showing Rebecca's mounting debts. Her resentment documented in private messages. She blamed you for her father's business failure. For her family's bankruptcy. She wanted Diana to suffer the way she suffered. Jeff's chest tightened. Rebecca loved Diana. No, sir. She loved what Diana had. And she hated that she couldn't have it. Sarah appeared in the doorway. Jeff had kept her at the estate, needing answers only she seemed able to provide. She looked at the photograph and nodded slowly. That's her. I can feel it. The hatred. It's all over that picture. Jeff rounded on her, fury rising. "You're a child. You don't know anything about my family." "I know what I feel." Sarah's voice was quiet but firm. "And she's the one. She's been feeding Diana poison every single day." "Based on what?" "Your feeling." Jeff's voice dripped with contempt. "I have evidence. Security logs. Data. You have nothing but—" "The truth," Sarah interrupted. "I have the truth you don't want to see." Jeff grabbed the photograph, crumpling it in his fist. "Rebecca has been with Diana through everything. She wouldn't." "She would. She did." Sarah stepped closer. "You want your evidence to tell you who to trust. But your evidence didn't save Diana." "I did." The words hit like a slap. Jeff looked at this poor girl in her faded dress, standing in his mansion, telling him his own family had betrayed him. Everything in him wanted to dismiss her, to trust his money, his security team, his carefully constructed world. But Diana was alive because of her. "What do you need me to do?" he asked finally, the fight draining from his voice. Sarah's eyes hardened. "We need to make her confess. Because if she knows we know, she'll run. And Diana will never be safe." Jeff called a family meeting. Immediate family only. In the main dining room where crystal chandeliers cast everything in cold light. Rebecca arrived with flowers for Diana. Always flowers. Always smiling. Always playing the devoted cousin. Diana sat at the table, stronger now but still fragile. Sarah stood in the corner, watching. Waiting. "I wanted to share good news," Jeff began, his voice steady. "Diana's condition has stabilized. The doctors are calling it miraculous." Rebecca's smile widened. But Sarah saw what others missed. The tightness around her eyes. The slight clench of her jaw. Disappointment masked as joy. "That's wonderful," Rebecca said, setting the flowers down. "I've been praying for a miracle." "Have you?" Jeff's tone shifted. "Funny. Because according to security footage, you've been doing something else entirely." Rebecca's face froze. "I don't know what you—" "You altered Diana's medication schedule. You played recordings of her worst moments while she slept. You whispered doubts and fears disguised as comfort." Jeff stood, his shadow falling across her. "You poisoned my daughter." "That's insane. Confess." Sarah's voice cut through the room. "I can feel it eating you alive. The hatred. The jealousy. It's destroying you too." Rebecca's mask cracked. Her face contorted with rage. "You want me to confess? Fine." She turned to Diana, tears streaming. "Yes. I did it. Every single day. Because you had everything handed to you while I watched my family lose everything. Your father destroyed my father's business, took everything we had, and gave you a palace." Diana gasped, tears falling. "You never suffered a day in your life," Rebecca continued, her voice breaking. "So I made you suffer. I made you feel what I felt. Worthless. Forgotten. Like the world wanted you dead." Jeff moved forward, but Sarah raised her hand. "Let her finish. She needs to empty it all out." Rebecca collapsed into a chair, sobbing. "I wanted you to know what it felt like. To have nothing. To be nothing. I wanted you to feel my pain." Sarah approached slowly, placing her hand on Rebecca's shoulder. Rebecca flinched but didn't pull away. "Now it's gone," Sarah whispered. "You're empty. And so is your hold on her." Rebecca looked up at Diana, broken. "I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry." But sorry couldn't undo 3 years of torture. Jeff called security. They took Rebecca away quietly. The room fell silent. Diana stared at the flowers Rebecca had brought. Still fresh. Still beautiful. Still poisoned with lies. Sarah sat beside her. "It's over now. She can't hurt you anymore." Diana nodded, but the betrayal still ached like an open wound. Rebecca was charged with attempted murder. The evidence was overwhelming. Jeff could have buried it quietly, kept it from the press, protected the family name. He chose truth instead. The story broke everywhere. Billionaire's daughter nearly killed by trusted cousin. The media feasted on it. Jeff's business partners called, concerned about his judgment. His reputation took hit after hit. He didn't care. "Let them talk," he told his PR team. "My daughter is alive. That's all that matters." 3 weeks after Rebecca's arrest, Jeff stood in Diana's room with an envelope in his hand. Inside was a check. An amount that would change Sarah's family's life forever. Education. Housing. Security. He handed it to Sarah. She stared at it like it might bite. "I don't want your money," she said quietly. Jeff smiled. Sad but genuine. "I know. That's why I'm giving it to you. Because you saved my daughter and asked for nothing. Because you saw what I couldn't see. Because you were right when I was wrong." Sarah looked at Diana, who nodded encouragingly. "My mom works 2 jobs," Sarah whispered. "My brother needs medicine. Then let me help. Not as payment. As family." The word hung in the air. Family. Jeff knelt down to Sarah's level. "You gave me my daughter back. You showed me that everything I built meant nothing if I couldn't see the truth right in front of me. I can't replace what you've given us. But I can make sure you never have to struggle like this again." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. She looked at the check, then at Jeff, then at Diana sitting on the bed, smiling genuinely for the first time in years. "Okay," Sarah whispered. "But I want to keep visiting Diana. Not because of the money. Because she's my friend now." Diana stood and walked over, no longer weak, no longer dying. She pulled Sarah into a hug. "You're more than my friend. You're my sister." Jeff watched them. 2 girls from different worlds who should never have met. One saved by empathy. One saved by courage. Both teaching him that wealth without wisdom was just another kind of poverty. He'd built an empire on control and power. Sarah had saved his daughter with nothing but truth and compassion. For the first time in his life, Jeff understood which one actually mattered. Outside the window, the sun set over the estate. The iron gates still stood. The mansion still gleamed. But inside those walls, something fundamental had changed. A family built on money had been torn apart. A family built on truth was just beginning. This story proves that the most valuable things in life can't be bought. Jeff had billions but couldn't save his daughter until a poor girl with nothing but compassion showed him what truly mattered. Who are the Sarahs in your life that you've been overlooking? If this story moved you, do me a favor, hit that like button and subscribe for more challenging stories that promote humanity. Comment below what you thought, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Another incredible story is coming next. You don't want to miss it. See you there.